Are you ready? High voltage is upon us. Join our hosts, Chris and Sean, while they turn up the voltage.
Welcome back to Dadnarok High Voltage. This is Sean.
And this is Chris.
Hey, we are here once again for our vodcast. It's Dadnarok High Voltage. This week we're talking about the Mighty Ducks Game Changers, the Disney Plus series that just ended, had their 10th episode the last couple of weeks, and Chris and I finally caught up. I don't know, should we open up with just initial thoughts on this thing?
Well, let's open up on who we are and what we're about. What do you think?
Oh, fine.
Minor details, all right. Oh, well.
Does that mean you wanted me to do it?
Well, you know
right.
what? It always does it.
True. We're Dadnarok. If you guys don't know who the heck we are and you're tuning in, well, God bless you. But we're a couple of guys, we're a couple of schmucks that have known each other since we were 10 years old. Met back in 1993. I'm gonna go full blast here.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna give them our whole encyclopedia of who we are. No, you can go to dadnarok.com and find out about us, but we do an audio podcast that's available on all podcasting platforms. We have a YouTube channel. Just search out Dadnarok. We do trailer reactions. We do after shows to a lot of the stuff that's out there, including Mandalorian and the Marvel shows on Disney Plus. But yeah, check us out. This is one that we did not do an after show. We kind of talked about it initially to see if maybe there was any interest, or you and I kind of doing a week-to-week thing, but ultimately we decided against it. Why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, we were at a point where we were still doing another after show. We were still doing the Falcon Winter Soldier after show.
True, yeah, that's right.
We didn't want to double up, and we figured one at a time, and we got to be very conscious of family time as well. Our wives will shoot us if we are back here too much. We've been threatened before. I mean, it's happened.
Get your butt out of the basement.
Yeah, exactly. But guys, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, drop a comment. We're interactive. Just let us know what you're thinking if you caught something we didn't catch, and how about we just go ahead and dive into this. So,
Yeah.
What were your opening thoughts when you first heard they're doing a new Mighty Ducks like TV show rather than a movie?
I was excited because I'm actually a fan of Cobra Kai. It was this is a series that came out on YouTube initially, but now it's a Netflix series a few years back, where they took the Karate Kid property and did an episodic television show based around it with a new fresh take around Johnny Lawrence. And they actually have done a really great job. It's kind of a cult hit right now. It's really popular. And they took their time with it and did really well with it. And I was thinking, if Disney Plus so far they've been firing on all cylinders as far as their series with the Marvel and Star Wars stuff. If they can put a little bit of that love into this 90s series that you and I grew up with. I mean, it came out, I think, 94, 96, and 98, like every
Something
couple
like that,
years
yeah.
there throughout the 90s. You and I were big into this franchise when it was initially released in the movie theaters, and I was excited for it. I was hoping they'd do a good job with it.
Yeah, I mean, I went into it thinking, I was looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I played hockey, so I mean, the whole, enjoying the Ducks. I wanted to see the flying V. I wanted to see a triple deke. I wanted quacking.
Right.
I wanted all that nostalgia. I wanted more windows to be broken by like Fulton. I mean, I wanted all this stuff from the show, and maybe I went into it wanting too much.
Possibly.
But I mean, you can't fault them for that. That's my fault for setting the bar to a level that they may not have been trying to achieve, rather than what I wanted it to achieve.
Yeah, that's fair, because I think before Bad Boys, this is probably the franchise that you and I quoted the most, just with
Cake Eater
and stuff like that. Yeah, so it was pretty near and dear to our when we were kids. I remember that just popping in that VHS tape quite a bit.
It's not worth winning if you can't win big.
That's right. Yeah, that's good stuff.
Oh man.
Well, what was exciting is having Emilio Estevez attached too, because it's like, okay, so they're going to bring pretty much the main character, the main big actor that was in those original movies, and bring him back, and he hasn't done much of anything for years and years now. So if they can kind of pull Emilio Estevez out of retirement for this show, was telling me that they had something. It was interesting enough to bring Emilio back. Then
He
then it
believed
might be
in
good.
the franchise and breathing new life into it.
Right. Yeah. So, but overall, so you and I were excited kind of going into it. It premiered like maybe a few episodes into Falcon and Winter Soldier. Of course, you and I were doing a show on Falcon and Winter Soldier, so that was kind of our main focus was
Yeah.
driven towards there. I watched the first couple episodes, maybe the first 3 or so, and then I kind of fell out of it where I wasn't watching it immediately when it came out on Fridays. I was maybe watching it a few days afterwards. I don't know. The first half of the season kind of lagged for me a bit initially, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the first half of the season for me, I was forcing myself. I was like, I am watching this. They're only 30, 33 minutes total runtime, and that's with credits and everything. So it wasn't like you were committing to an hour show each week.
Right.
So it was sitting down, and I was having issues. And I think it was issues with like small things. Like, for instance, the Hawks. Why have the Hawks been like completely forgotten about? Their jerseys weren't even the same. They weren't even black, white, and blue anymore.
They were like a totally different team, and they were bad. Like they weren't good. They weren't a good team anymore.
So they weren't even good anymore. So we don't know what the transition was that happened there.
Yeah.
Why can any player play on the Mighty Ducks when it's only District 10?
District 5.
Or 5. I'm sorry, District 5.
Yeah.
So they had to play in the district that they lived in. So why were players trying out for a team that they're not? That was the whole reason Adam Banks had to change to the Ducks.
Yeah.
Because they redrew the lines and he was no longer a Hawk. He was now a Duck per where his address was.
Yeah, and then how they opened up the show too, we have basically the Mighty Ducks, that team in this area of Minnesota. They have all this, historic stuff, and Gordon Bombay was this like miracle coach that, created this team and brought them to glory, and they have the rich history, and they've been like the winners, like the main team of this area for like the state. They were like state champions for, year after year after year.
Yeah.
When we finally get to them here in, 2021. But they were jerks, basically. They become the new Hawks.
They became the Hawks. Yeah, they became the cake eaters.
Yeah, exactly. So like they've got a bunch of like helicopter parents that are like worried about how their performance in this hockey is going to like affect their standing in college applications, that sort of thing. Just all this pressure on these kids. Like this coach with this like slick back blonde mullet.
Know who he reminded me of?
Who?
Remember Iceland's coach in the Olympics? He kind of had the same feeling, aura from him.
He gave me those vibes for sure, yeah.
Which was pretty cool. So, I mean, I didn't mind him so much. I almost minded the bait and switch of the name of the show.
That's
Mighty Ducks Game Changers. When the Mighty Ducks were almost a complete afterthought of the show. They were a side portion of the show, and it had everything to do with this new team called the Don't Bothers.
The Don't Bothers, right. So one of the Gilmore Girls, Lauren Graham, who I've been watching, since Gilmore Girls. I didn't watch Gilmore Girls really, but I know of this actress.
I think you just admitted to watching Gilmore Girls.
No, I know of Gilmore Girls. I know her and, the girl that played her daughter or whatever, but she was also in Bad Santa. Like she was with Billy Bob Thornton in Bad Santa and stuff. So I've seen her around, but like she plays the mom of one of these, he used to be a Mighty Duck. Her kid, her son, Evan, he was on the Mighty Ducks team, and he ended up getting cut by this, kind of a jerk coach.
If you're not good at hockey now, you don't bother.
Yeah, exactly. You might as well just not even bother. So that's why she created a brand new team. She was like, invite, whoever you want on here. And he basically, his friends were the Mighty Ducks, like his social group. They were all people on that team. So he basically had to go out and collect misfits. And this is one aspect of those first couple episodes that I did like, kind of the gathering of these misfit kids who, some of which weren't even thinking about hockey. Like you think they're goalie Coob, who's just sitting playing video games in the basement.
He was really good at playing video games, and he's like, he never actually used any other body part than to be a goalie.
Yeah. So you're right. There was kind of a bait and switch here where we weren't following the Mighty Ducks this whole time. Maybe in spirit, just how that's a ragtag group of kind of misfit kids, but the actual Ducks were we didn't even see them play. I don't think
No.
barely.
Yeah, the only connection really to the Ducks was Bombay, who was running the
Right.
Ice Palace, who
And
he wanted nothing to do with hockey.
that's right. Those first few episodes, that's what I was kind of put off. I got what they were doing too, but I was kind of put off with how against hockey he was. I mean, he was just kind of this grumpy curmudgeon, just kind of like, in charge of this rinky-dink ice rink.
Completely falling apart. Yeah.
Yeah, falling apart. He didn't want anything to do with hockey, and which is a fine backstory. You got to start somewhere to get Bombay back in action, but that's just like not where we left him. We left him in such a good place, from the series from the '90s. Like he, brought these kids together and brought them to glory, and then was able to do his own thing.
Yeah, he went and played with the Minnesota North Stars, and
yeah, so it was like to see him so like downtrodden in the state now after all these years was a little bit like, oh man, well that kind of stinks. But I get what they did. Like they were trying to tell a story here about him coming back.
It was the clear definition of slow burn.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was on a slow. They were telling the story longhand, and you had to be invested in some manner. Let me ask you this here. If you had no connection to the Mighty Ducks, say you didn't watch them, you had nothing to them when you were a kid.
Didn't even know the name Gordon Bombay or anything.
If you didn't know any of that, would you have been able to hold on to a certain point to watch us?
I don't think so. No, I think just the nostalgia itself kept me coming back week to week, and barely, because there's some weeks I kind of skipped and then had to catch up.
Yeah.
There was a lot of stuff with like the mom Alex and her, like she's like this lawyer's assistant, like the stuff at her workplace. There was just like way too much of that. It was like okay, I get it. You're because this is a long form. This is 10 half-hour, 35, 40-minute episodes. You kind of have to give a lot of character breakouts of all these characters. But like anything involving like her coworkers or stuff where she's trying to impress her boss, or
Stephanie, her boss, the back and forth between those two, and
right.
Story wise, it paid off at the end between those two.
It did, yeah.
But
and we'll kind of save as far as the last few episodes. I feel kind of really brought this stuff around in a good way. But as far as the first half of the season, it dragged a bit.
Okay, so we gave some stinkers. There was some stink. It was a part of the season that it was hard. There was absolutely some good portions in that.
Yeah,
but it was hard to get through. Like I enjoyed it just because I was forcing myself to enjoy it, and I went weeks without watching it. Like quite frankly, to be honest with you, yesterday I watched 3 episodes, and today I watched a couple more. So I was like 5 episodes behind. And being 30 minutes, it was easier to get through it that way, just because you can just let it go, and then it was a lot more cohesive, binging it. Yeah. But it was still rough. I mean, I had my phone now, I was watching it, watching my phone as well, kind of doing the 2 things at once.
Coming in today, I was 3 episodes behind, and I did binge watch all 3 episodes today just to get caught up for our discussion today. And coming into it,
we got a rating out of 6 out of 10.
Oh, Justin says 6 out of 10.
Oh yeah, you know what? I think we weren't planning on doing this at the end of the episode, but I think we got to give it our rating out of 10 on this.
Yeah,
that's 6. I think that's a little more above halfway middle of the road for him. So I think he enjoyed it a little bit more.
Yeah, we'll have to come up with our own scores by the end here. I don't know. Yeah, anyway, so I'll tell you what, if it's just by the first half of the season, I would say like 3 or 4 out of 10.
Oh, yeah.
Not great.
So, okay. So let's get into what we really liked about it. Because, I mean, there's points in it that were great. Yeah. I loved how they brought, all these misfits together. I loved how they all of them besides Evan didn't know how to skate at the very beginning.
Right.
Because Sophie wasn't even a duck. She wasn't even a don't bother. She was still a duck.
Yeah, for the first few episodes.
And he had to convince her to join. And then she started seeing what the ducks were.
Yeah, and that was like 2 episodes. That was even drawn out. Everything was drawn out.
Yeah, so it took a little while for her to come over. Once she did, though, you can kind of see, where the fun began, where she started developing a relationship with the other girls in the team, which would never have hung out together. And you see that kind of coming into, place where, you wouldn't have them they'll be hanging out in different cliques at school.
Right.
And then they slowly became really good friends. And by the end of it, you see, it's the group. So that was the same about all of them between Evan and what's his name? The little boy, other guy, the podcasting kid, Nick. Yes.
Yeah.
So between him and Nick, at the end of it, he was like, he called him his best friend.
Right.
And he was like, I always kind of hoped that was it, but I never wanted to push it. the awkwardness between Nick was great.
Nick he's a funny little actor. Like, he had great comedic timing when he was just, giving his dialogue. He was cool. I did enjoy the kids. At first it was kind of, it was a little rough, just getting used to the different kids. But by the end of the season, they get in a position to where, well, I guess I'll just talk a little bit about plot this last episode here, but they're in a position where they could win the states. They're going against the Ducks, and Sophie injures her knee. She's had problems with her knee pretty much throughout the entire season. She's been getting worse and worse. You can see just because her parents and herself, she's been pushing herself so hard, between the regiment of the old Ducks and plus her just wanting to do well for the Don't Bothers. She hits her knee, and she gets to a point where it's like, this doctor back in the back room tells her that, she can continue to play in the pain, but she risks, if she injures again, she might, tear a ligament and really do some permanent damage to herself. And she pushes through.
I'd say Evan caught her. She was sitting outside, and she had her, knee pad and everything down. It was black and blue.
Yeah.
And she confided in him.
Right.
And he was like, I can't rightfully not tell somebody about her knee, because she was sitting there crying.
Yeah.
And she knew if she couldn't play, then the whole team had to forfeit.
And I like how nobody was BS to that whole thing. Like, nobody was about that. Like, Evan from the get-go, he immediately went to her parents. He immediately went to his mom. He was like, this is what's happening, because he cares more about her than, winning states or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's how the whole team felt. So it wasn't just, Evan, because he's got like romantic feelings or whatever for her. It was, she went to the back room and she called a team meeting. I thought that was funny. Where
I love the whole team meeting thing. Yeah.
Yeah. She slammed the door on Alex, and it was just
started yelling at Evan.
Yeah, because she was like, how dare you? This is my choice or whatever. But he was like, well, if you're not sitting out, then I am, and we're going to forfeit because of me. And the whole team does that because they don't want to lose her, as a friend. They don't want her to have any kind of
don't want to hurt. Yeah.
Yeah. So at that point, you realize that these kids, and they say as much later in the episode, like they've already won, like they've gained each other as
they go through the whole standing up.
Yeah.
I think they even did that in the original Mighty Ducks at some point, where someone stood up and said something, and it kind of went around the room. So that they're the points where I really loved it, because it really mirrored some of the originals, things.
And that moment of them coming together and standing strong like that felt like the old Mighty Ducks movies to me. And it just happened so at the end of that scene, that's, they're in their between periods, and before they go back out there, Gordon Bombay pulls out the old green and yellow jerseys from the original movie. Oh, and man. I was like, yeah.
I got chills. I mean, just us talking about it, I just got chills again. And it probably doesn't help them sitting over there, the air conditioner vent here.
Right.
But I mean, let's just take a step back here. There was how did you feel when you seen the original Ducks come back? When Gordon's going down the street in his truck, and his truck window shatters.
That was hilarious.
I cheered. I knew who it was immediately. Like, without them telling me, only one person's going to break a window.
Yeah.
A car window. And it was Fulton. He's sitting there, with the, being a construction worker, doing his thing there. And as soon as he sees him, he recognizes who it was. It took Bombay a minute to realize who it was.
Yeah. I loved it. And you and I kind of discussed this. This was episode 6. So we'd already had 5 episodes previous before we even saw anybody from the original Mighty Ducks besides Emilio Estevez. And episode 6 is really special because they brought back, I don't know, there was like 5 or 6 of the original team from that original movie.
Yeah.
Like I said, I guess Kenny Wu came in at D2, Mighty Ducks 2. But anyway, the original Ducks.
Connie, Avery.
Aberman
Aberman,
and Cake Eater Adam Banks.
Adam Banks, yeah.
And Guy, I think, was Connie's boyfriend. She came back.
It was important they brought Banks back. I think Banks made it because when they went to the gala, and then he realized, he even said so. He said, "Oh, they're just a bunch of cake eaters now."
Right.
So he referred to them as cake eaters. Like, he was always the cake eater.
Yeah. That was a good episode because it was almost like a passing of the baton where they didn't interact too much with the kids, but they did interact with the kids a little bit. But that was the point where Gordon really kind of shifted as well, where he fully embraced kind of his role with these new kids. Well, because he was upset because I guess he got snubbed.
He didn't get invited, and he played it off like he wanted nothing to do with him. And then we found out why Conway wasn't there. He said, "I'm not going to show up for Bombay when Bombay hasn't showed up for us."
Right.
So okay, that's the way they led up his character. Yeah, I'll buy that. But if there's going to be a season 2, Conway better show up.
I need to see Joshua Jackson come back as Charlie Conway because their relationship, their dynamic, was like kind of the heart of those 3 films.
What happened between his mom and Bombay? Yeah. You know what I mean? It was, he wanted to move into the window. You remember the whole line? Yeah. And the whole thing. And, it just, there's a lot there that they can tell that we as like original fans need to know.
The first thing I think about when I think about the original Mighty Ducks movies is just like these misfit kids all coming together, like the whole team as a whole. The second thing that I think about is like those those heartfelt talks between like Gordon Bombay, Joshua Jackson's, Charlie Conway, and like the older skate shop owners, Hans.
Hans.
Yeah. Just like these like generational like chats about like not only sports but like life lessons that they would sit down and talk to each other and get through problems.
How'd you know it was me? Well, you're the only one to come in the back while I'm sharpening skates at this time of night. Yeah.
Right. Those were the really special things. So like I'm with you. Like I like that this series, at the end of the day, it was kind of hard to get to know these new kids and not get much of the old nostalgia from the original movies. But I think they wrapped it up by the end of episode 10 to where I appreciate these new kids. Like they're a team that I want to follow and I like watching them now. But they've dropped enough hints about Charlie's relationship with Bombay where I think there's some meat on the bones left and that we can give some dramatic storytelling for Bombay and hopefully Joshua Jackson can come into season 2 and, really get some a little bit more drama around that. That would be good.
Yeah. I know that any more of the original Ducks that come in, I mean, I'm game for Kenan Thompson. I mean, it's rumored that he's going to be coming back. So it would be cool, if they came back together, like, they became lifelong buddies and they came back, or him and Sean Wise. I mean, that's a long shot, but I've heard rumors that he has cleaned up enough that he may make an appearance. So you know what I mean? If you bring Goldberg back, I think Mighty Ducks. I think I'm Goldberg. I'm Goldberg the goalie.
Just think of him farting and everybody going Goldberg.
It wasn't me. I swear.
I'm pretty sure Goldberg was the one on the first theatrical poster. It was just a poster of like a puck flying towards a kid's face. I think it was Goldberg's face.
I mean, all that. I mean, when they realized when Evan basically broke it to him that he didn't come to the gala, because he was not invited, and when they came back and they drove the limo onto the ice, that
was a nice moment.
That was a nice callback to the original one. So I mean, that point of the show is where I became a lot more invested in the show. Like, I was watching the show, but I wasn't invested. Right. When that episode hit, then I became invested on how we move forward.
Yeah, and then from there you had pretty much the ramp up towards the end of the series or the end of the season anyway, because you had
Yeah.
episodes 7, 8, 9, and 10, which was all kind of gearing up towards them getting better, like them actually making these, going through a tournament and actually winning some games, getting some goals. We see Nick, the podcast, he was funny in the first episode. He was like, I got more of a podcast body. And you and me, as a couple of podcasters, like
We
that
understand.
really, like a punch in the gut. I know what you're saying, kid.
Oh, but yeah, I loved how his character developed.
Yeah.
Like he went from like doing nothing. Then he was concerned about, the other kid. Oh, what was his name? Logan.
Yeah.
He has it all. He has the looks and everything. And, hasn't scored a goal.
Yeah.
And now that he has that pancake flip thing, that whole little montage with him making breakfast.
Right.
And then, Bombay sees what he's doing, takes him out on the ice, and basically does the spatula at the end of the stick, and he takes the spatula off. That whole thing.
Yeah.
And showed him how to flip the puck on his stick and go around the net and, shove it in the back. It was
because that was some of the most fun stuff in the original movies, was like each of these kids had kind of their own thing going on. Like Charlie Conway was just like an all-around kind of talented, good hockey player. But then especially when you hit D2 when they were going to the Olympics, you had
knuckle puck.
Yeah, you had the knuckle puck, right? You had the Fulton's where he would, it was like 2 out of 5 or something he would get, but he would
something down those lines,
and would just like fly through the goal. You had little Kenny Wu, who was just like a master figure skater. Like he was just
him and his sister, wasn't it?
Yeah, I
they
think
were both
so.
Figure skaters.
Yeah, and like the cowboy was like just complete like puck handler with just with the stick and handling the puck and stuff. So it was fun to see them sort of develop some of these things. And like you mentioned, Logan kind of gets that little breakfast trick shot, putting it up on the puck and getting in around the corner there. That was kind of neat.
Yeah, I mean there was that. I mean, even seeing the development in Coop being the goalie.
Yes.
That development where he was like, oh, he said, my legs don't move. And he said, they were playing pond hockey. They were out in the pond.
Yes.
And he said, all of a sudden you've seen them fly and jump into the actual, snowbank.
Yeah.
And that's when he realized, hold on, I mean, these do move down here. And then you see that whole development with that, all the way to where he's like upset, like his parents are the only ones that don't show up to the game.
Show up. Yeah, and then they did, and it was a nice moment. They gave each of these kids kind of a nice backstory, nice moment. Even how we were talking about Nick and Logan, how Logan was actually jealous of Nick because Nick's parents, his 2 moms were always showing up at every game and cheering him on.
He said he looks through the window and he sees that family environment that he doesn't have.
Right.
So
yeah.
You don't always think of that. I mean, as a kid or anything, you're looking at everything else. Like if you're the one that's the podcaster. You don't have the looks, you don't have all this. You're thinking, that kid that has it all.
Yeah.
And in reality, it may be completely flipped. And that's kind of the angle they showed, with those two.
Yeah, that was a nice storyline. I think really the only teammate out of these kids that kind of got the short shrift was maybe Dijon. I think that's the character's name, but he was the kid that was like, I'm the wild kid that crashes into stuff. They didn't really give him much of a character arc.
I mean, they had a little bit when Evan decided to go ahead and try out again.
That one episode, he was the one that was kind of most heartbroken, but that was kind of an easy resolution. Like by the end of it, he was just like, I don't know. I think there's more to do with that kid. He was probably the only one because even like the girls had them finding their friendship with each other. Yeah. Like one was just like this, Lord of the Rings geeky kid. The other one was like Miss Popular Girl. And them two coming together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but it's like, you can't give everybody everything most of the time. I'm sure if they bring back a season 2, I'm sure there'll be room for.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of room. Yeah, like you said, there's more meat on the bones to go ahead and play with.
Yeah.
What did you think about them making states? Like, there was a part of me that didn't want them to go on this winning streak and get to states because they weren't showing that they were very good to start with. They were just developing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Logan, you didn't even learn to skate well until like episode 8 or 9 out there with Bombay. So it's like, I mean, some of these things you just have to give it up to, well, it's a TV show. It's a Disney sports movie kind of show.
Yeah.
And I got to, give it up where you need to. What I did like, though, is that they didn't granted, they didn't win because they forfeited. They didn't just straight up lose against the Ducks.
Yeah.
But it was like, if they would have come out season 1 and went from a nothing team all the way to, they won the state championships, I'd have a real big problem with that.
Yeah. And I mean, that would just be the underdog story that has always been played out, though. So
right.
I mean, even the original Ducks beat the Hawks for state. Was it states they played the Hawks in, or whatever the tournament was?
Yeah, I think it was states. But even when they introduced those kids from the get go, they're doing like a lot of like inline skating, around town and stuff.
Well, they were playing pond hockey. It was when you first seen them. So I mean, they were already competent on skates. The only one that was competent.
These kids were like not. They weren't even athletes.
Yeah, no, there was only one person that was competent on skates, and that was Evan.
Right.
Until he was able to get Sophie to come over.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would have had a big issue with. I was a little like, it didn't bother me too much.
Right.
That happened, because then you see the development and everything, and then, dude, they break out the flying V.
Yes, that's how they scored the final goal that they did. Yeah.
To go ahead. Yeah, I mean, when they were in the throwback jerseys,
doing the flying V. Evan's the one that calls out and he says flying V, and then they spread out.
I got chills.
Cool.
I was like, there was two things I wanted. I either wanted the flying V or I wanted a triple deke. Old school slow motion, left, right.
That's coming. That's coming next season.
I wanted it. I was kind of disappointed that we didn't get it now. But who gets it? Is Evan by default the one that's going to wind up getting it?
Well, I think Evan is like the new Charlie, so probably. Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah, probably.
Because I mean, him and Sophie, I mean, are obviously the top two.
Or it could be Sophie. Yeah, I could see that too.
I mean, that'd be interesting. But I need to see it. That was the one thing that we didn't get. But I mean, the flying V was enough for me to be like,
yeah,
okay, we're good.
I do like that the stakes changed from them winning state as the no bothers to having a different game afterwards, where if they lose, then they have to not come back the next season. Yeah. Or if they win, then they get the name back. They get to be the Mighty Ducks. And once they had that stipulation, Bombay brought that out. I was like, oh, of course. Of course that's what they're going to do. Because you can't have a show called The Mighty Ducks and not be following the Mighty Ducks.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, season 2, they're going to come back and they're going to be the Ducks.
Yeah. So, I mean, that makes me believe that they wouldn't have had that. Like, if they would have lost and disbanded the team, I seen that have been an easy way to wrap up the series.
Right.
Seeing that they didn't go that route, it makes me believe that there is intentions on being at least a season 2.
Yeah, exactly. I think so.
But I mean, all in all,
I was just gonna say, when you got Disney money, I think Disney can afford to at least put another season out there. I don't know how. I didn't hear a lot of buzz around this season, though. Did you? I mean, it was on there, but I didn't hear a lot of people talking about it.
No, but I thought, I mean, it'd be fun to actually look into it. I mean, I'm pretty sure the numbers are out there somewhere.
Yeah.
What it did, compared to other things. But it was also, wow, I'm sorry, I just hit my mic.
How unprofessional.
Wow, yeah,
Triple D.
But knuckle puck. But I mean, in reality, when it was running a lot of the times against Falcon Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
And then the Bad Batch started, which we'll talk about another time. So it wasn't like it was running by itself. Unlike The Mandalorian, the first Mandalorian, even season 2, there was no competition for it at all. So the more stuff they put out there, it's going to become like Netflix. You're never going to know, how well it's doing unless you really dig into it in the numbers which you can find online.
So I think you and I are probably on the same page. It was probably too long. 10 episodes are probably too long. They probably should have shortened it down to maybe like 6 or 7 episodes. You and I felt that they kind of redeemed the show at the end of episode 10, where you and I are both kind of excited to see where it could go from here with these characters.
That's fair.
Yeah. So what about, per Justin here, what's your score out of 10?
So I got to take in consideration the whole season. The first half of the season, I mean, I could have give and take. You know what I mean? If they would have started with the gala and everything, and those players showing up. That could have been an easy start for them. And then, Bombay begins, at that point. So that'd been about 5 episodes from there. So I got to dock it some. I mean, I'm looking maybe I'm in that 6 or 7 range. Like if I give it a 7, that's just because it's bumping it really almost 2 points just because on how good it ended.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to be generous. I'm going to give it about a 7 just because I think the first half was only about a 5 at best.
Right.
And then the ending was, if it was just the ending, I would give it probably about an 8. So if I give it a 7, I think that's about fair.
I'm right there with you, Justin. I think overall, and this is me, I wouldn't have given the show a 7 like halfway through, but right now I'm feeling it about a 7. I think the first half of the season kind of drags it down a bit, but they did enough in the last couple episodes, wrapping up a lot of the plot lines. I mean, there wasn't just the nostalgic stuff with the old jerseys and the flying V. That stuff was good, and I was waiting for that stuff. But I think that the show also did a good job with wrapping up a lot of these different storylines. I mentioned even earlier with Alex and her boss, Stephanie.
Yeah, the payoff. We find out why she's been at work so much and everything. You find out they're going to be going through a divorce, and they put so much pressure on themselves and everything.
They got on the same page, and by the end, Stephanie was like, "No, this is a deal." Like she did a solid for Alex and her team, where it was like a deal's a deal, and it just came around where you're like, "Oh, okay." So there was a reason for.
Well, when she came down, when she's on the board of trustees for the Ducks, I thought she was going to go ahead and pull the plug on the whole thing. They're like, "Nope, we're still the Ducks. Goodbye."
Right.
It's like, pull that turn on us.
Yeah.
And when she went ahead and basically said, "Nope, deal's a deal. They're Ducks," and that young guy was furious and smacked the board and walked out because he thought
they were going to be back. You think he'll be coaching?
Yes.
What do you think they'll be called? I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully they bring. Hopefully they do a season 2. We'll see.
Yeah, but it sounds like, for both of us, it was worth our time watching. But
I need one more heart-to-heart between Joshua Jackson and Emilio Estevez. Just sit down.
Why things go bad? Go to just sit at a bar, or you know what? Go, take a walk through Minnesota's Ice Festival for a callback. That's where him and his mom were.
I want to see him. I want to see Gordon sharpening some skates and Joshua Jackson walking into
the Ice Palace in the back. If he walked in the back, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
There's a few things out there they can do. I think that as long as there's nuggets that they can hit from the first 3 movies, I think they're always going to drop some fan service on us because they're relying on us to push it, but then they're relying on us to show our kids.
Yeah, and that's another thing I wanted to bring up too. Like, did you show Zach any episodes of this at all?
I don't think I specifically showed them to him. Like he knew I was watching something. Like he'd come in, and the majority of the time, in my defense here, though, I'm at work at 1. So typically, what I'll do is I'll watch him earlier before he's even home from school.
Yeah.
But now that he's home from school, the likelihood of us, crossing paths on what we're watching, before I kick him out of the house and go play outside, which isn't very hard.
Well, I was going to say this. I think this is a really good show to watch with your kids. Like, I think there's good life lessons. I think they'll be interested because there's a lot of kids on screen. I think kids like watching stories with older kids because they can see themselves in it. And it's a good, gateway to bring out the old movies too, and show them what you and I grew up on. So I haven't watched any with Verona, but I definitely would, because even with the girls, like how there's girls on the team. And they're just as good as the boys are on this team. So I think
they've always done a good job at that. Definitely, even going back to the original ones, they've done a good job of that. Did you ever get any type of CW vibes from this?
A little bit. I think that was just because it was episodic, and they were really kind of taking a deep dive into the interpersonal relationship between these kids and their parents and the adults and the relationships there, which sometimes it was working for me and other times it wasn't. Other times it just felt like it was dragging. So
I thought maybe it was just Lauren Graham for me. It just automatically gave it that CW feel to it.
Probably. Yeah.
Okay, man. I know what. I think all in all, we both enjoyed it. You want to go ahead and, if they didn't catch at the beginning, let them know that who we are. You let them know who we are.
We are Dadnarok. We are a couple of guys that do an audio podcast mostly every week. You can find that on all podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcast and Google and Spotify, all those great things. We are typically on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel, and we typically go live we have been doing it every Friday, but coming up here, we're going to be doing a Loki after show, and Disney Plus actually moved Loki to Wednesday nights or Wednesdays, so we're going to be doing our Loki after show Wednesday nights at 10 p.m. on our YouTube channel. So look out for that. Beyond that, go to dadnarok.com. You'll find links to all our episodes, and you'll find links to our shop as well at TeePublic.
Yeah, you know what? Check us out over on TikTok. I'm over there goofing off every now and then. So go over there. Let us know how stupid I'm being. I've got no problem. It's fun.
Please do.
Please do. Boy, he was emphasizing.
Please comment. Please watch him and comment whatever their first thought that comes out of your brain. Be sure to comment that.
Okay, guys. Well, I think it's about that time we tell you to go ahead and keep it cheesy.
See ya.